Good morning, Revolution, everybody, and welcome to our stream. Hope everybody's doing good in this, at least on the East Coast, cold weather. I know it's cold in the Midwest, and it's not as warm and on the West Coast as Rosanna would like it would to be. But at least the fires have stopped, and we've been concerned about you all for a few weeks now. Folks, we are a month and a day, I think, into the new Trump administration. This and we have seen the gutting of federal agencies. We've seen a halt in spending, and a court said you got to continue, and they're refusing to do it. We got planes falling out of the sky. We got measles and other outbreaks of diseases. We've got the administration openly siding with fascists in Europe and Germany and France and other places, and embracing racists in South Africa, and picking up and wholesale deporting immigrants to Guantanamo in Cuba, to Panama. I saw a show this morning where a number of migrant families from Afghanistan, Iran, other places were sent to a remote outpost in the Panamanian jungle, and who were deathly afraid of being deported back to their home countries for fear of death. No criminal backgrounds, and I mean, it's just Rosanna. Is it as bad as you thought it was going to be? A little bit better, or a little bit worse than you expected when Trump came to power?
I think it's as bad as I thought it was going to be.
Hmm.
Um, people are paying the price, unfortunately, for, in my opinion, um, other people's not understanding the the dangers that we were going to have with the new Trump administration. And so, no, I think it was just as bad. But what I think also is that what I'm happy to see is the fight back movement. The people that are fighting back and not letting it get them down, but really taking action to fight back. And I think that's our best defense, even for our own mental health, is to take action, become active in our communities, take take initiatives that are going to have impact, not just good field initiatives, but something that's going to contribute to the fight back in a constructive way.
Yes, I agree. The fight back is beginning, but it's not quite where it was in 2017 when Trump was inaugurated. Tony, is it as bad as you thought it was going to be? A little bit better or worse? What's your opinion?
Unfortunately, I think it's actually worse than I thought it was going to be.
Hmm.
I knew it was going to be bad. I think we all knew it was going to be bad. But the pace at which this administration is beginning to dismantle the apparatus of the state and to implant their lackeys, implant their loyalists is really alarming, and the pace at which the director of the FBI, the director of the Department of Justice, all of these things that are taking place within the first 30 days, within the first month, is really alarming. And so I think we all knew that it was going to be really bad. But the pace at which these things are happening, I think, is worse than what I initially envisioned. Like Rosanna, I am also really glad to see that the fight back is materializing. But I'm alarmed at how quickly and how bad things are in these first initial days.
It's a blitzkrieg, Tony. They're talking about shock and awe.
Yeah.
John Case, I like the word blitzkrieg. You know, that's the word that was introduced into the English language by the Nazis, you know, from the
Yeah.
original German. John, is the fascist danger greater now or lesser than you initially thought? Where are
Well,
we?
it's greater because I think it's many people had illusions. Most of my friends used to spend a lot of time calling Trump an idiot, and instead, what we're witnessing is a well-oiled, well-prepared, massive machine, actually, that was ready to assault the state, and is proceeding and is doing so, and has a bind on the Congress, and has a obviously very willing listeners on the Supreme Court. We'll see how closely they follow suit. So far, they've not gotten in his way much. So, I mean, I have two things to say. One, as an officer for the Alliance of Retired Americans in West Virginia, I've been receiving calls all day yesterday. And of course, my wife works with the federal government, and federal workers in her union have been over at the house and calling and Zoom calls. And people want to fight back, and they want to find a way to fight back when their elected representatives appear to be largely, or at least partially, compromised and disarmed. And in West Virginia, it's a supermajority of our enemies everywhere. And it's going to be a terrible awakening. I was in the convenience store this morning, and two Trumper folks were debating, talking about the price of eggs. And and one of them was saying, well, the whole problem was the government under Biden starved the chickens. And the other one said, well, you don't need to worry about that. Trump's going to bring back $1 an hour gas. And so I picture that as two folks that are going to have a terrible awakening very soon. Okay, that the price of eggs is. I said to the gentleman, I think you're going to have to cut down on the eggs regardless. So, anyway, and at the same time, there's a desire to expand the fight back. We have a big conference, the West Virginia AFL-CIO, next week in Charleston, and I'm sure the dimensions of that are going to be in. The anger is widespread, but so much of the anger is directed, appears to be, just like my fella in the store, at the government. And all these grievances of people left behind in various aspects of the recent developments of capitalism in the United States have been given somebody to point the finger at. And for lots of different kinds of reasons. Anyway, so I think it's scary.
Yeah. I mean, what about pointing finger at Elon Musk? That's what surprised me. I was surprised at the role of Elon Musk, that they let him, in and gave him a free hand to do whatever the hell he wants to do, and he's doing it. I didn't. I knew that Bannon and them were all gaga, about tearing down what they called the administrative state, and by that they meant all the protections and agencies that had been set up, beginning with the New Deal up through the what they call the second Reconstruction, that was one during the Civil Rights period, and and beyond. But that boy is just going crazy. And yes, there is the beginnings of a very important response. But Rosanna, you how would we rate the response of the Democratic Party? Because I mean, after all, they're the ones who have political power to a certain degree in Congress and state houses and so on and so forth around the country. Now you worked in the public school system for a period, Rosanna. Give
30
them a
years.
grade. Would it be A, B, C, D, or F?
I think they're running a close D.
D.
Yeah, I think they're the ones more in shock and awe than anyone else in this country, I think. And I think their world is being shaken and even more, and I think the public needs to continue to shake that world and demand that they step up, and to, fight back, because it's true, they have the legislative power right now. And and but we also have to take consideration our responsibility as voters. How many people did not vote, and how many people should next time around make sure that we elect the progressive yeah, candidates. So yeah, I think they're not used to this kind of a fight back.
Not used to this kind of a fight back. Well, they better get used to it quick.
Hmm.
We're going to have a little lightning round. Tony, A, B, C, D, or F?
I'm going to go with D also. I think that the Democrats are currently playing by the old rules, and they don't understand that the Trump MAGA cabal are going for broke. And if they get their way, we're going to be living under a authoritarian regime. And so they need to learn that they were playing a new game now, and they haven't quite learned that lesson. So yeah.
Not up to speed. Not up to speed at all. John Case, same
Oh,
question. How
they
would
get
you
an
rate it?
F. They get an F because they were the ones that lost, okay, and they lost big time. But they lost because they're incapable. I don't believe they're capable of recovering or going back to what they were, because they're compromised by their own billionaire domination in certain areas. And the billionaires, even the liberal ones, are not going to do the things required to repair the damage that has been done to this society by the accumulation of wealth and monopoly.
Hmm,
Sorry.
hmm. Wow. Okay. Now, wait a minute, y'all. Wait 1 minute. The Democratic Party is a big camp. There are many different constituencies in it. You got the corporate Dems, you got labor Dems, you got Black, Latino, Asian Dems, women, LGBTQ. You got a progressive caucus, you got a Hispanic caucus, you got an Asian caucus, you got a progressive caucus. You know, and so when you give grade, you got to look at the whole thing. Now, I would give the corporate Dems. You're in the wrong part of the alphabet, y'all. A, B, C. No, you give them a Z. The corporate Dems, I, they they got caught flat-footed after the election. They didn't know what to do. They didn't know what to do. And after the inauguration, most of them were in complete disarray. I mean, complete. But some are standing up. Ilhan, Omar, standing up. Rashida Tlaib, standing up. AOC and them, standing up. The senator from, what's his name, from Connecticut, standing up. Good. Bernie Sanders, well, he's an independent. Standing up, and that's what has to happen. And yes, you're right. There has to be a whole heap more street heat. You got a lot of you got to light a fire under them. But Rosanna, okay, so we're critical. You gave them a D. I understand that poor performance. What should they have done? Hakeem Jeffrey said, "Well, we ain't got no leverage. What do you expect us to do?" What would you say to him? You got him on the phone. What would you say to him?
They have the people as leverage, but they have to do the right thing. That's what I would tell them.
The people are the leverage. You got to do the right thing. Case, what do you think they should have done? Are our expectations unrealistic? I mean,
I
given
think that
what you know.
Well, I think that the ones that are standing up are reflecting their constituent and their primarily working class constituent base. And you know, I think the message you have to do is to tell people the truth. And the truth is that life is going to get harder, and you have to get hard too.
Mm,
And our movement has to get harder, and inside and outside the Democratic Party. Most of the labor movement is inside the Democratic Party, but they are just been declared illegal. The labor
mm,
board, the EEOC, the Department of Labor, the Occupational Safety and Health is not functioning and will not function until Trump appoints a majority board, which will be unbelievably anti-union and anti-worker. So
mm,
there's no one coming over the hill to save us but ourselves. And anybody who thinks different it's going to be like the two fellows in the 7-Eleven this morning. There's the price of eggs going beyond what they can eat is that's going to hurt. And so I think we have to. I think telling the truth to the people, all the progressive, that will build the momentum we need and the unity. If we are not united, then we're not going to change anything. Nothing. The power of the working class is solidarity. You got it, you win. You don't have it, you lose. And so I think, and that is a hard lesson. I've watched, the workers in the federal government where my spouse works, come to that conclusion. And they
mm,
never even thought they needed it at the time. But all of a sudden, and the leadership of that union, their discussion was so warm and welcome and patient and loving in a certain way that,
mm,
you can see the solidarity start to come together and the understanding of where they were at.
mm.
So I think that process is profound to me, and we have to build on it inside and outside the Democratic Party. But we have to expose illusions and tell the people the truth of what is in front of them. There's no
Tell the
white knight
truth.
over the hill.
Tell the truth. That's what Amilcar Cabral. Y'all remember Amilcar Cabral, Guinea-Bissau, great revolutionary leader from West Africa. He said, tell no lies, claim no easy victories. You gotta tell the truth. Tony, you're a former representative, the great Cori Bush. Tony, she had a sit-in, remember, on the
Mm-hmm.
Capitol steps around during the pandemic because they were cutting off aid to the homeless, right? And
Yep.
and Biden stepped back and put a freeze on whatever they were doing that prompted her to have that sit-in. But later, Representative Bush, Cori Bush, was admonished by Pelosi. But I said, no, you're a legislator. You don't be bringing them grassroots tactics into Congress. We're more polite, isn't it? God damn it! Isn't it past time to be polite? Don't you need some mass civil rights, labor, working class tactics up off in there, Tony?
Absolutely, absolutely. It is well past time. In fact, I think that AOC and Bowman and other Congress people and senators should have been sitting in there at the Treasury Department and sitting in there at the FAA and sitting in at all those different departments that Musk and his fucking lackeys were at, and they should have been dragged out. So they should have been. The police should have been there, and there should have been the commotion and the media and everything else that it should have been this thing to where the media attention should have, and to where it caused the commotion and caused the attention to bring to bring all of this attention and drama to the reality of what's going on, instead of just making speeches on the outside. They should have went in and did all of this stuff, and did the sit-in similar to the types of sit-ins that we saw at the Ford plants in the 1930s by workers, because it's that type of dramatic action that's going to bring people to the realization that we're in a different moment. And so I think absolutely the type of action that Cori Bush took then is the type of action that representatives and Congress people and senators need to take now, because we're in a different moment.
We are in a completely different moment, Tony. You're absolutely right. And I'm gonna tell you something else. One simple, very simple thing that they could start doing is stop voting with the MAGA Republicans for fascist bills. They've been voting with them for the Laken Riley Act. They're able to arrest and hold indefinitely without trial any immigrant, regardless, they're not a citizen. They can hold them indefinitely. They're required to hold them, arrest and hold them without trial. And the damn voted for it, bunch of them. And the same thing with that bill that targeted 501c3s, nonprofits that were accused of supporting terrorism. They voted for that. And don't get me started talking about the military budget. But Rosanna, aren't we in a tough spot? I mean, kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't tough spot. Because on the one side, you got to use the vehicle of the Democratic Party. They have power, but it's an unreliable vehicle. But if you boycott them and don't do anything, don't work, you have no leverage at all. We used to describe, back in the day, the U.S. political system as a two-party trap. Two-party trap. Do you think that description is still accurate, Rosanna?
Well, that's a good question. I have to give it a lot more thought, but I think, you know, we have to we have to always think about what we have before us and how we can change what's our situation, and not just get stuck on the fact that we have this only two party system. So how do we move things forward for the benefit of the working class? And I think, right now what we have to do is put a lot of pressure on the Democrats, and at the same time start looking to see who who which progressives can run under which offices, and even communist candidates, begin to put that forward as a process. The struggle is a process. It's not going to happen. We can't change it overnight, but what are the very next steps, given what we've got? What are the very next steps that we can take to move things in the direction of meeting working people's needs?
Now, Rosanna must have seen my notes. Tony, because you gave me a perfect segue into the next question. Because you need to develop what we call independent political action. Independent political action. Tony, what does that mean? Can you break that down for our listeners? When the Communist Party talks about independent political action, uh, what are we talking about there?
Well, independent political action can mean a lot of different things, but I think the bare bones of it is that you're not beholden to the capitalist class. You're not beholden to the established power structures. When I ran for office, it was under the Democratic Party banner, but I was an independent candidate for all intents and purposes. I was asked to run by the community in which I lived, and I was an independent candidate in a sense. Everybody knew I was a Communist Party member, a Communist Party leader, but I was asked by my community to run against the incumbent candidate, and as of someone who was building independent community power, we built a coalition of trade unionists. We built a coalition of community leaders. We built a coalition that included other elected officials who were willing and brave enough to stand with an open, well-known communist. And so I think political independence can take a lot of different forms. It kind of depends on the situation in a given community, but I think that we absolutely have to run more communist candidates, and that we have to take those lessons of running communist candidates, whether it's for city council or state rep or for scored elections and those types of things, and begin to build our own independent political apparatus that can push issues, because even if we don't win, we can push the issues that forces the other candidates to respond to the community in ways that they wouldn't have responded otherwise. For example, in my campaign, the main issues were raising the minimum wage, were stopping the privatization of the airport, and the choice abortion. And so I think those are the types of things that we can do as independent as candidates who build an independent apparatus. And so I think that there's a lot we can learn. There's a lot that we have done in our past that we can revisit. But yeah, I mean, we absolutely have to run more communist candidates.
So when we talk about political independent, we mean independent of big business,
Yeah,
independent of the bank, independent of the military corporation, independent of monopoly, and dependent on dependent on the people, on the working
absolutely.
class. We raise our own money, we run our own candidates, we have our own outlook, we have our own program and platform. And we talk about the forces of political independence. Who are they? They're in your campaign. They were the trade unions. They gave you money. They lent you personnel to knock on doors, to do phone banks. And the trade unions have their own get out the vote operation. All of that. And so yes, we have to encourage campaigns that take place where workers run, where left-wing people run, where socialists and communists run and win. And by the way, y'all, Tony almost won. How many votes did you lose by?
It was 52 votes. I lost by 52
52
votes.
votes. Lord have mercy. John Case.
Well, I think the
We,
problem
we,
we
we,
have is
we,
that we don't have a two-party system now. We have a one-party system,
oh, uh-oh.
and so the opening is it's wide open
Wait. We got a
for
one-party system?
Yeah, the Democratic Party just got destroyed in West Virginia about a year ago. It's no longer. It has let's see what 8 out of 200 seats and 3 out of they're dead. Um,
Well, that's
and
West
and
Virginia,
nobody's going to
but what about around the
the labor
country?
movement's not going to run as a Democrat. So it's wide open for political independence in West Virginia. And if you run as a Democrat, it's going to have to be some new kind of Democrat if you're going to win anything. Okay, um, and if you run, and you might as well. We already have a socialist that ran, Zach Shrewsbury, last time. He did pretty good in our county, actually, and in the neighboring county too. He actually won several counties, but still, and Bernie Sanders actually won his initial primary in West Virginia too. Um, so it's an interesting challenge, but we have to approach it here like there's really a one-party system because they have super majorities in every branch of government.
So you're talking about in the state of Virginia,
West
you
Virginia,
have one, but nationally, now we used to talk about having a inside outside strategy on a national level. Case is that still valuable in your
yeah,
opinion?
well, sure, it has to be because I mean, a lot of the resistance is going to have to involve Democratic-led states, especially California and New York, the huge economic and political power base. So, I mean, it's no, you can't ignore the Democratic Party, especially on a national level or wherever it is actually
Oh,
powerful. Um,
glad to hear
but,
you say
but,
that.
well, I mean, you have to. I mean, but I'm just saying here in West Virginia, no, if you run as a Democrat, the party made some very serious mistakes for a poor state, and I don't want to go into all of them, but they made a lot of tactical mistakes. So
Rosanna, so nationally, we work with those forces inside, labor is inside, Mexican American population is inside, women are inside, black folk, so on and so forth. LGBTQ environmentalists are inside. But we also have to work outside and run and focus on independent political action. But we also, Rosanna, have to have a platform, and that platform uh, uh, has to include radical reform of the political system. Now, imagine that you had a magic wand, Rosanna, and you could just wish changes, radical reforms in the U.S. political system. Where would you start? Would you enlarge the Supreme Court? Would you get rid of the Electoral College? Would you abolish the Senate? Because Electoral College and are grossly unfair. Two people per. Get out of town with that craziness. Would 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 you change the voting system? Get rid of that Citizens United with they unlimited corporate contributions. You know, let's say you you found a genie in a bottle, and you got three wishes. Which of those three would you prioritize?
Well, I think I would skip all of that and just establish a socialist country or a communist country and forget all of that, and that because that will take care of everything, right? But if I had to go step by step, I think the electoral college is a well. I don't want to cuss on the show here, but I think the electoral college is a sham. I think the Supreme Court's, you know, it's so unfair. Everybody knows how they're going to vote. How can you think that they're going to really represent the Constitution and all of that when everyone knows, what the line, where the line is and who's on which side. So I think that's got to go. So I think I would have to think very, very strategically about, if I only had three wishes, what would be the most beneficial for all. And I would say just, set up the system for socialism, and then the second one was we quickly transform it into a communist society. It's,
Working
that's
class power now. We need
exactly.
a working class led state now.
And
Dante,
it's not,
that
Joe,
go ahead.
it's not, I think, I think what's important for people to understand that it's not impossible. We're seeing some of this happening even, in Mexico, where there's a transition going on, where people's needs are being met in a country that, you know, it people had this idea that it wasn't possible. And in other countries, we see it happening. I've seen it, firsthand in when I've been to China, and to Cuba. You can see the equality that's happening there, and meeting people's needs. You don't see people on the streets sleeping on the streets in tents or all of that. That really affects us personally. And so I think it's not the pie in the sky kind of thing. It really can happen, and we have to really, unite to make it happen.
Got to unite to make it happen. We need unity. We need solidarity. We need independent political action. John Case,
Yeah.
we spoke at the National Committee about breaking the billionaire grip on the government. Breaking the and that means that you have to you need radical economic political you need anti-monopoly measures to what do we mean when the Communist Party talks about anti-monopoly measures? What break that down for our audience? What does that
Well,
mean? What would that encompass?
well, I
To
think
break
it.
the hold of the billionaires on the state.
I know you got about what almost 100 years of debate in the communist movement about this, going on now. But I think the most instructive lesson from the Chinese in the recent decades has been, for me, in studying how they have managed to have a mixed economy but keep it headed in a more socialist direction. Is the first thing you have to get control of is the accumulation of wealth and the place where it's all circulated, which is the financial system. If you don't do that, capital is so mobile, and I mean it seeks the highest rate, and almost independent of the people that it's attached to sometimes. And I think that so that has to be the beginning. And if you think about the Fortune 500, not the Fortune 500, the S&P 500, the 500 largest corporations, and the top 10 wealthiest Americans, and the huge concentration of wealth that has proceeded, no matter what anti-monopoly reform, almost unstopped for the entire history of industrialization and capitalism in the United States. With one exception, it flattened out from about 1940 to 1972. But it never went down, and it's now been accelerating again for the past 60 years. So you have to get control of that process. Otherwise, everything you do, that no matter what the issue is, that huge gap in wealth will poison every well. And to make it, you'll be climbing up like Sisyphus, up the mountain, up, 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 and it will never get smaller. So that's the fundamental challenge. And I think, The Chinese have so far successfully done that. And there's many other aspects of their revolution and their path to socialism that are not going to be like here. We're post-industrial, they're still industrial, okay, among many other aspects. But to get past or through or around capitalism, over it, you have to have the state power to manage that financial system so that the investment flows go where the people want them to go and where they need to go for the whole people to rise. That's my capsulated, there's much to it, but I think that's a minimum step, and it's a process. It's not just one thing, okay? But that's where I would start to look.
It's a process. What did Lenin said? He said the socialist revolution is not a single act, but a series of acts over an entire historical period, you know? And we begin that process with anti-monopoly by breaking the grip of the big monopolies, the military, tech, oil, health, you name it, over the government, you know? And a simple thing like enacting repealing, not enacting, but repealing Citizens United would be a huge step in that direction, but that's not enough. You're going to have to radically reform the electoral system. You know, we need proportional representation. We need to get rid of the Senate. We need to abolish the Electoral College. We need to open the space for third parties. It's almost impossible for third parties to get on the ballot. Yeah, we need to support the Working Families parties and other third parties if they got some sense and they ain't trying to run in a way which elects MAGA Republicans. We ain't trying to do that. That's craziness. You know what I'm saying? And in coalition with other groups, organizations, and movements, initiate a process that would lead to a situation, and we have to start at the local level. City council, mayor, county commissioner, state representative, so on and so forth. And that's what we're beginning to do, y'all. And the party has to be part of that process. And if there's anybody out there who is willing to run for office, we will support you. Write to us at CPUSA at cpusa.org. Let us know. And we will support you. Because the reality, comrades, siblings, is that ain't nobody going to save us but us. John Case gave it away at the beginning of the show. Ain't nobody going to save us but us, you know. The workers and the people, black, white, brown, Asian, you know, of all genders, together. Eric Adams ain't going to save us. He's trying to save his butt from, you know, Schumer ain't going to save us. You know, no, we have to save ourselves, you know. And the fact of the matter is that over the last several weeks, the people have been lighting a fire underneath the Democrats. They need to light up under the Republicans too, like nobody's business. They've gotten more phone calls, more text messages, more pressure than they've gotten in 20 years. Good, keep it up. They said the resistance was dead, but the resistance hadn't even gotten started. They were making plans, and those plans now are coming into full bloom, coming into fruition. And the next stop on the way to fighting the MAGA power is going to take place on February the 28th. Y'all, the national boycott, February 28th. We support it. We're not buying your stuff. And there are a series of dates that's going to take place over the next few months. And the last thing I'm going to say is, if you want to study how radical reform takes place, check out our Black History Month event on Sunday at 10 o'clock Eastern. Sorry, y'all on the West Coast, but we got the South Africans and they insisted on that time. It's a 7-hour difference because the South African Communist Party is leading a process to dismantle a racist capitalist regime. And they're going to talk about their experience and they're going to talk about their study of how the tech billionaires, Elon Musk, Peter Thiel, and them got into the position that they got in. So check out our email, sign up for the program on Sunday, support the boycott on the 28th. Come back next week for another edition of Good Morning Revolution. And until then, folks, stay strong, stay safe, and whatever you do, stay in the fight. Rosanna, John Case, Tony, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank
Have
you.
a good weekend. Bye.